If you're reading this, a desperate note from a missing woman, an empire of leather and loyalty mobilized not for money, but for blood. What follows is a relentless, emotional siege where the only currency is family and the only rule is bring her home. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. If you're reading this, I'm still alive. They moved me. The words, scrawled in frantic, familiar pencil on a torn piece of receipt paper, stopped Daniel Grinch Kowalski's heart dead in his chest. He was in the grimy bathroom of the Last Stop Gas and Go, just off Interstate 80, washing road grit from his hands. The corner of the paper, taped behind the cracked mirror, fluttered in the damp air from a vent. His sister Lucy's handwriting, the same looping L she'd used since 3rd grade. She'd been missing for 72 hours. The club had been looking, but it was like she'd vanished into the Nevada air. Now this. His massive, tattooed hands, usually so steady, trembled as he peeled the tape away. The message was dated yesterday. She was alive yesterday, and someone had moved her. He didn't run. Men like Grinch didn't run, but he moved with a velocity that slammed the bathroom door open so hard the hinges screamed. He erupted into the harsh fluorescent light of the convenience store, his leather cut, the winged death's head of the Hell's Angels patched proudly on the back, seeming to fill the space. His face, usually set in a permanent, amused grimace that earned him his road name, was a granite mask of cold fury. Paul, he bellowed into his cell phone, already straddling his Electra Glide. The engine roared to life, a beast answering its master's anger. The last stop, I-80 mile marker 122, Lucy's alive, she left a note. They moved her. We need every gate, every road, every goddamn goat trail out of this county shut down. Now. Within 20 minutes, the first rumble was heard. It started as a low, distant thunder, like a storm rolling in over the desert mountains. Then it became distinct, the synchronized, earth-shaking growl of hundreds of Harley-Davidson engines. They came from the north, the south, from the clubhouses in Reno and the outposts in the dusty towns. They were mechanics and veterans, bar owners and contractors, united under the same colors. They didn't give up their empire, they used it. This wasn't a business move, this was family. By the hour's end, 200 strong, they had executed a blockade of pure, terrifying efficiency. Every major highway exit and county line road was choked with a wall of leather, steel, and resolve. They weren't hiding. They stood in plain view, arms crossed, facing the growing lines of traffic. The message was silent but deafening. Nothing and no one was leaving until they said so. Grinch stood at the strategic nexus of Highways 80 and 95 with his closest brothers. There was Mark, preacher, his VP, a mountain of a man with a surprisingly calm voice who could quote Nietzsche or a talk specification with equal ease. James Doc, the sergeant at arms, whose medical skills were as sharp as his tactical mind. And David Chips, the treasurer, who could track money or a person through a maze of digital and concrete alike. The note was taped behind the mirror, Grinch said, his voice raw. Means she was in the bathroom, probably with a guard outside. She had seconds. They'd have to stop for fuel, Doc said, scanning a map on his phone. Or a driver change. This is a transfer point. They're moving her east, maybe towards Utah, or south to Vegas. Preacher put a heavy hand on Grinch's shoulder. We'll find her, brother. We've got the net. Now we just need to shake the tree. The tree shaking began. The bikers didn't harass civilians. Their menace was a focused thing. They checked trucks, vans, campers. They talked to truck drivers on CB channels, a network within a network. The light-hearted moment came from a prospect named Ricky, a kid so eager he practically vibrated. He was checking the trunk of a minivan driven by a flustered soccer mom. "Ma'am, you wouldn't happen to have a kidnapped woman in here, would you?" he asked with absurd politeness, peering at a pile of soccer cleats and grocery bags. The woman stared, wide-eyed, at the sea of outlaw bikers surrounding her. I have a casserole for the church potluck." From beside his bike, Chip snorted. "Check the casserole, Ricky, could be a clue." Ricky looked back, genuinely confused, until Preacher's deep chuckle rolled out. "Ease off, prospect, let the lady through." It was a tiny release of tension, a human glimmer in the grim operation. Then the radio in Grinch's saddlebag crackled. It was Alina, his old lady. Her voice, usually a smooth alto that could calm his worst storms, was tight with controlled urgency. Daniel, Chips just called me. He tracked a payment from a shell company linked to the Bianchi family to a private ambulance service. A vehicle was logged out of Reno last night, non-emergency transport. Its transponder just went dead near the blockade on Route 399. The Bianchis, a sleek, suit-wearing Vegas outfit that had been making uncomfortable overtures towards the club's northern Nevada interests. Grinch had told them where to shove their partnership. This was their reply. Elena continued, the driver's name is on the manifest, Leo. He's got a record for strong-arm work. Daniel, he's got a sister too. She works at the Starlight Diner off 80, about 10 miles back towards Reno. Jennifer. Grinch's mind clicked into a cold, strategic gear. You're a genius, my Amma. Just bring Lucy home, Elena whispered, the fear for her friend finally breaking through. And you come home too. There was charged chemistry even in that brief exchange, a decade of love and shared outlaw life condensed into a few words. It was a reminder of what was at stake, the family you choose, the love you protect. Preacher Doc with me, Grinch ordered. Chips, you hold this line. Ricky, you're driving the chase car. Chase car, Ricky yelped, looking from his dented Honda Civic to the row of gleaming baggers. We're not going to a bike show, kid. We need something inconspicuous. 5 minutes later, Grinch, Preacher, and Doc were crammed into Ricky's Civic, which smelled faintly of fast food and anxiety. It was a comically surreal image. 3 massive, patched Hell's Angels folded into a tiny economy car, rolling towards a roadside diner. The Starlight Diner was a relic of chrome and neon. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of grease and coffee. A waitress with tired eyes and a name tag that read Jessica poured coffee for a lone trucker. Behind the counter, a younger woman, late 20s with Leo's same wary eyes, refilled ketchup bottles. Jennifer. Grinch approached, moving with a deliberate, quiet grace that was more intimidating than any bluster. He slid onto a stool. Preacher and Doc took a booth nearby, their presence dominating the small space. Jennifer, Grinch said, his voice low. She froze, bottle in hand. Who's asking? Friends of your brother Leo. We are worried about him. He's mixed up in something that's gonna get him hurt, badly. Her bravado was thin. Leo don't have friends like you. He took something that belongs to me, Grinch said, and the raw pain cut through the menace for a second. My sister, her name is Lucy. She's kind. She teaches kids to read. She makes a lemon cake that could make a grown man cry. Your brother has her. Jennifer's face paled. The tough girl act crumbled. She glanced towards the back, towards a door marked private. He called me last night. He was scared, said the job was bigger than he thought. He was just supposed to drive a patient. But he heard her crying, heard the guys with her talking about a changeover at the old Carson Valley airstrip. He wanted out, but they said they'd come for me. Grinch reached out, not to threaten, but to steady her shaking hand on the counter. No one is coming for you, my word on that. But I need to know when, Jennifer, when is the changeover? She swallowed, tears in her eyes. Tonight, sunset, a private plane. He's supposed to get her there by 7. Grinch looked at the clock, 4:30 p.m. They had time, but no margin. He stood, pulling a roll of cash from his pocket and laying it on the counter. For the trouble, lock the door after we leave. Call this number if anyone but us comes. He scribbled Elena's number on a napkin. She'll keep you safe. Back in the Civic, the mood was electric. Carson Valley airstrip. Abandoned, but the runway's still clear enough for a twin prop, Doc stated. It's in the next county over. We lift the blockades, Preacher asked. No, Grinch said, a plan forming. We let them think they're still trapped. They'll be spooked, looking for another way, but if they've got a plane, they'll stick to the plan. They'll try to run the back roads to the airstrip. We just have to get there first. Ricky drove like a man possessed, the little Civic whining in protest. They rendezvoused with a group of 20 brothers at a prearranged point, brothers who had come on lighter, faster Sportsters. The bikes were left, and they transferred into a fleet of unassuming trucks and SUVs, the other, less visible side of the club's empire. The convoy snaked up into the foothills, taking logging roads that dusted their vehicles in pale dirt. They reached a ridge overlooking the Carson Valley airstrip an hour before sunset. The scene below was desolate, a cracked runway, a dilapidated hangar with a collapsed roof, and a windsock that hung limp and torn. It was the perfect place for a ghost to disappear. Grinch watched through binoculars, his every muscle coiled. He saw a black Suburban arrive first, disgorging 3 men in suits who scanned the area with professional paranoia. Bianchi's men. Then, right at 7, a white ambulance with no markings bounced down the old access road. It rolled to a stop near the runway. The back doors opened, and there she was. Lucy. Her hands were bound, a strip of tape across her mouth. Her hair was matted, and her face was streaked with dirt and tears, but her eyes, Grinch's same fierce blue eyes, blazed with defiance. A man in a paramedic's uniform, Leo, helped her out, his movements gentle but hurried. One of the suits stepped forward, grabbing Lucy's arm roughly. Leo protested, and the suit backhanded him to the ground. That was all Grinch needed to see. He keyed his radio, now. It wasn't a roar of engines that answered. It was the deep, throaty purr of diesel engines. From behind the hangar, from the tree line, 5 big rigs that belonged to the club's legitimate trucking company rolled out, their high-beam lights igniting the twilight like stadium lamps, pinning the Suburban and the ambulance in a circle of blinding white. The doors of the trucks opened, and a small army of men in cuts poured out, armed with nothing more than tire irons, wrenches, and a righteous fury. It was a silent, swift descent. The Bianchi men went for their weapons, but they were surrounded, outnumbered 20-1 by men who lived and fought as a pack. The confrontation was brutal, short, and decisive. It was the physical manifestation of the club's code, you don't touch family. Grinch didn't see any of it. His world had tunneled to a single point. He was running, his boots pounding the cracked asphalt. One of the suits, bloodied but desperate, broke free and made a grab for Lucy, pulling a small pistol. Time slowed. Grinch didn't break stride. He tackled the man with the force of a freight train, driving him into the ground, the gun skittering away. He felt bones give way under his fists, a red haze clouding his vision, until he heard her voice. Danny, stop." The tape was torn from her mouth. Her voice, hoarse but unmistakable, cut through his rage like a knife. He froze, fist raised. He looked from the unconscious man beneath him to his sister's face. The fury drained, replaced by a flood of something so profound it left him trembling. He stumbled to his feet and went to her, his big hands fumbling to undo the zip ties on her wrists with a tenderness that seemed impossible for them. "Lucy, God, Lucy." She fell into him, sobbing into his leather cut. "I knew you'd find the note," she choked out. "I knew you'd come." He held her, rocking slightly, his own tears cutting tracks through the dust on his face. The world around them, the subdued Bianchi men, the brothers securing the scene, the distant wail of sirens finally approaching, a friendly sheriff, one who understood the delicate ecosystem of the territory, it all faded to a blur. Later at the clubhouse compound, it was a different scene. The medical wing, run by Doc, was patching up a few scrapes and one bullet graze. The main hall was a roar of relief, a cacophony of laughter, backslapping, and the clink of beer bottles. Lucy, wrapped in a blanket, sat on a battered leather couch, Elena beside her, holding her hand tightly. The 2 women, one who was born his family, one who was chosen, were the twin anchors of his soul. Grinch stood on the periphery, watching his family, his real, messy, brutal, beautiful family, celebrate. Preacher brought him a beer. "We sent the Bianchi boys back to Vegas in the trunk of their own car," Preacher said quietly, "with a note, a literal note this time from us." Grinch nodded. The Empire had spoken. It hadn't been given up. It had been used perfectly as a shield and a sword. The message would be received. He made his way through the crowd to the couch. He knelt in front of Lucy, taking her hands. "I am so sorry, Luce. This is my world. It touched you." She shook her head, her eyes clear now. "Your world is why I'm here, Danny. Your world is these people. It's Elena. It's you." She managed a weak smile. "Besides, my big, scary biker brother just shut down an entire county for me. That's the kind of story you don't get to tell every day." He kissed her forehead. Then he looked at Elena. Her dark eyes held his, a universe of understanding in them. She had held the fort, used her sharp mind, and waited, fearing the worst. He reached for her and she came into his arms, her head fitting perfectly against his shoulder. The charged, silent moment between them spoke of the night to come, of private, fierce gratitude and love that would be expressed away from the crowd, intense, adult, but deeply, fundamentally safe. The party rolled on around them. Ricky, the prospect, was telling a wildly exaggerated version of the chase car story to a captive audience. Chips was already on a laptop, untangling the financial trails to make sure the Bianchi family felt a lasting, painful pinch. It was life in all its chaotic glory. Grinch held his two women close, the engine rumble of Brotherhood a comforting bass note around them. They hadn't given up a thing. They had defended what was theirs. And in the heart of the empire, fueled by loyalty and love, Lucy was home. The celebration in the clubhouse stretched into the early hours, a cathartic release of pent-up fear and fury. But as the first grey light of dawn bled through the high barred windows, the reality of what came next settled like a fine dust over the quieting hall. The Bianchi family wouldn't take this humiliation lying down. An empire had been challenged, and empires always retaliated. Grinch found himself in the club's chapel, a secured room with a large table, maps on the walls, and a solemnity that hushed even the loudest brother. Preacher, Doc, Chips, and a few other chapter presidents from nearby territories were there, their faces etched with fatigue and grim focus. "Vegas is buzzing," Chips said, tapping his tablet. "Our friends at the Tropicana say Silvio Bianchi is spitting nails. He's calling it an act of war. He's moving assets." "Let him move," growled a president from Carson City, a grizzled man named Bear. "He brings war to our desert. He'll find out we invented it." Preacher held up a calming hand. "This isn't a turf skirmish. This is different. They didn't just take a run at our rackets. They took Lucy. They targeted family. The rules have changed." "Preacher's right," Grinch said, his voice a low rasp. He'd barely slept, his mind replaying the sight of Lucy, bound and terrified. This was a message, a weak one because they failed. The next one will be louder. We need to be ready, but we also need to live. Our businesses, our bars, our shops, they keep the lights on. We don't hide, we fortify. The strategy session was a masterclass in the dual life of the modern outlaw. They discussed shifting legitimate inventory, tightening security at their motorcycle shops and bars, and arranging vacations for the families of key members. It was pragmatic, cold, and necessary. Through it all, Grinch's love for Alina and his duty to Lucy were the twin poles guiding his every decision. He would not let his world shrink them. He would expand his strength to envelop them completely. Later that afternoon, Grinch stood in the driveway of Alina's small, neat house on the outskirts of Reno, a sanctuary she maintained separate from the clubhouse chaos. Lucy was inside, asleep under the watchful eye of Mercy, an old lady from the club who was a retired nurse. Alina stood on the porch, arms wrapped around herself against the chill. "You're leaving," she said. "It wasn't a question." "A few days, to Tahoe, to see Donnie." Donnie was an old contact, a former associate who now ran a high-end casino security team and had ears everywhere. "We need intelligence, not just muscle. I need to know what Silvio is planning before the first shot is fired." Alina stepped down, closing the distance between them. She placed her hands on his chest, over the worn leather of his cut. Feeling the solid beat of his heart. "You just got her back. You're running straight back into the fire." "To keep the fire from coming here," he said, covering her hands with his own. "To our door, to your porch." The chemistry between them crackled in the quiet space. It was in the way her dark eyes searched his, not with fear, but with a fierce, knowing resolve. It was in the way his thumb traced the line of her jaw, a touch that held promises of return and the memory of intimacy. It was a grown-up love, forged in the understanding of danger and the absolute choice to stand within it together. "Take Mark with you," she whispered, using Preacher's given name. "And you call me every night. I don't care if it's just to hear you breathe." He leaned down, capturing her lips in a kiss that was both tender and possessive, a silent vow sealed in the morning air. "I'll call," he murmured against her mouth. The ride to Lake Tahoe was a study in contrast, the stark, beautiful brutality of the high desert giving way to the soaring pines and glittering blue of the lake. The safe house was a secluded A-frame cabin owned by the club, all rough-hewn logs and windows facing the water. It felt a world away from the tension, which made the meeting inside feel all the more surreal. Donnie was a trim man in his 50s, wearing a cable-knit sweater that screamed "retired civilian," but his eyes missed nothing. Over glasses of expensive bourbon, he laid it out. "Silvio is embarrassed, Grinch, profoundly. You didn't just rescue your sister, you made his crew look like amateurs in front of his peers back east. He has to answer, but he's not stupid. A frontal assault on your strongholds? Costly, messy." "So what's his play?" Preacher asked, sipping his drink. Donnie leaned forward. "He's importing talent, a pair of brothers from back east, nasty pieces of work, specialists in making problems disappear, quietly. The word is, the hit isn't on you, not directly." A cold knot tightened in Grinch's gut. "Who?" "The woman, Elena, and your sister Lucy, a 2-for-1, to make you suffer, to break you before they even take a shot at your territory." Donnie's voice was devoid of emotion. "It's scheduled. Soon. They're already scouting." The room seemed to tilt. The thought of Elena, of Lucy, being hunted by professional killers while he was sipping Borny in a lakeside cabin was an acid wave of terror and rage. His fist clenched around his glass. Preacher's voice was a steady anchor. "Where are these brothers now?" "Last known sighting was in State Line, casing a boutique hotel. They operate like ghosts, but they have a weakness. They're obsessed with cleanliness, order, ritual. They use the same dry cleaner in every city, a place called Spotless Suds in South Lake. They had a suit in this morning. It'll be ready by 6. Grinch was already on his feet. The plan formed with icy clarity. They wouldn't run. They wouldn't hide Elena and Lucy in a hole. They would use them as bait, but bait wrapped in layers of steel trap. "We need to get to that cleaner before 6, Grinch said, his voice deathly calm. The operation shifted from defense to a grim, proactive hunt. Preacher made calls, his voice a low, commanding rumble. By the time they roared up to the unassuming strip mall containing Spotless Suds, a transformation had occurred. The club network had been activated. A brother who owned a landscaping company had 2 of his trucks and crews working in the adjacent parking lot. Another, who ran a tow truck service, had a vehicle idling casually nearby. They were the unseen net. Grinch and Preacher entered the clean, brightly lit shop. The bell jingled with absurd cheer. A clerk looked up, her smile fading at the sight of them. "We are here to pick up for the Rossi brothers," Grinch said, his face a polite mask. The clerk, flustered, didn't even ask for a ticket. The presence of the 2 large, patched men was authority enough. "Oh yes, it's just ready." She disappeared into the back and returned with a garment bag. As she handed it over, Preacher engaged her in friendly chatter about a stubborn stain, his bulk blocking her view of Grinch. With a surgeon's precision, Grinch unzipped the bag just enough to slip a small, wafer-thin GPS tracker into the lining of the suit jacket. He re-zipped it before the clerk turned back around. "You boys have a good day," she said, relieved to see them leaving. Back on their bikes, Grinch looked at the blinking dot on his phone's screen, now live and moving from the back room of the cleaners to the front counter. "Now we wait for the ghosts to collect their laundry." They didn't have to wait long. 20 minutes later, a nondescript black sedan pulled up. 2 men got out. They were of average height, average build, dressed in khakis and polo shirts. They were forgettable, which was what made them so dangerous. They moved with a synchronized, economical grace, the brothers. They collected the garment bag and drove over. "And now we follow," Preacher murmured, firing up his bike. The tale was a delicate ballet. They used a rotating relay of prospects in everyday cars, guided by chips from the clubhouse who coordinated via encrypted channel. The brothers drove to a rented Lakeview condo, sterile and impersonal. They stayed inside. "They're waiting for nightfall," Grinch deduced, watching the static dot from a vantage point a mile away. "They'll move after dark. We need to be ready." He called Elena. The sound of her voice was a lifeline. "My Amma," he said, the term of endearment heavy with unspoken fear. "You and Lucy need to take a ride, right now, with Ricky and Doc." "Daniel, what's happening?" "The threat is confirmed, and it's coming your way, but we are turning it around. I need you to be visible. go to the Lone Star Steakhouse off the highway, sit by the window, have a very public dinner. He could hear her sharp intake of breath, understanding immediately, "You're using us as a draw." "You're the anvil," he corrected, his voice softening. "We are the hammer. I will be there, Elena. I will be watching every shadow. Do you trust me?" There was a pause, filled with the static of the line and the weight of their life together. "With my life," she said, her voice firm now, "with Lucy's life, we'll be at the Lone Star." The next hours were an agony of suspended time. At the condo, the dot moved. The brothers were on the move. Their signal wound its way down from Tahoe, back towards Reno, towards the steakhouse. Grinch's crew paralleled them, a pack of wolves shepherding prey towards a chosen ground. The Lone Star was a popular, noisy family restaurant, all faux wood and checkered tablecloths. From his position in the darkened cab of the landscaper's truck in the adjacent lot, Grinch watched through binoculars as Elena and Lucy were seated at a window booth. Lucy looked pale but determined. Elena was a picture of serene composure, though he knew her knuckles were probably white under the table. Doc sat at the bar, nursing a beer, a medical bag disguised as a gym duffel at his feet. Ricky was in a booth nearby, clumsily pretending to read a menu. The black sedan slid into the parking lot like a shark entering calm waters. It parked at the far end, away from the lights. The brothers sat there, observing, scoping. Grinch's heart hammered against his ribs. "Come on, take the bait." One brother got out. He didn't head for the door. He walked casually towards the side of the building, towards the kitchen's rear entrance, a professional assessing all angles. This was it. "All units stand by," Grinch whispered into his mic. "He's approaching the back. Preacher, you have the front." The brother at the back door was a silhouette against the dull glow of a security light. He tested the door. It was unlocked. A small detail Doc had arranged. The man slipped inside. In the kitchen, the staff had been given an impromptu, paid break, courtesy of the club. The only person there was James, Doc, who was leaning against a stainless steel counter, looking at his phone. The brother froze, hand going inside his jacket. "Looking for the walk-in freezer?" Doc asked conversationally without looking up. "It's over there, but I wouldn't. The club's storing some meat in there tonight." The brother went for his gun. He was fast, but Doc was already moving, not for a weapon, but throwing a heavy ceramic sugar canister. It connected with the man's wrist with a sickening crack. A gun clattered to the floor. The brother hissed, lunging forward with a knife that appeared in his other hand. Doc parried with a stainless steel tray, the clang echoing in the empty kitchen. It was brutal, close-quarters combat, a clash of surgical precision against street-hardened efficiency. Out front, seeing his brother enter and not return, the second brother exited the car, his hand in his pocket. He started towards the restaurant's front entrance. Before he took 3 steps, the rumble of engines filled the night. Headlights flicked on from all directions, from the landscaping truck, from a van that just arrived, from the mouths of alleys. Grinch stepped out from the shadows, blocking his path to the door. Preacher emerged from the diner's entrance, cutting off his retreat. The brother stopped, his eyes calculating odds that were suddenly and catastrophically bad. He was surrounded by a dozen grim-faced men in cuts. He slowly removed his empty hand from his pocket. "Evening," Grinch said, his voice like gravel. "Your dinner reservation's been cancelled." Inside, the kitchen door swung open. Doc emerged, breathing heavily, a smear of blood on his temple. He gave a slight nod. "The other one's taking a nap in the freezer. He'll keep." Grinch walked past the captured brother into the bright noise of the restaurant. He went straight to the window booth. Elena looked up, and the mask of calm shattered, revealing the fear she'd held at bay. Lucy let out a choked sob of relief. He didn't sit. He just placed a hand on Elena's cheek, then Lucy's shoulder, a grounding touch. "It's over. They're taken care of." The ride back to the clubhouse was a solemn procession, not of victory, but of grim necessity. The Bianchi brothers were deposited in a secure location, a message already being crafted to send back to Vegas with them. The Empire had defended its heart, not with a shouted declaration, but with a silent, crushing demonstration. In the quiet of the chapel, later, Grinch finally felt the exhaustion. The emotional whiplash of the past days, the terror, the fury, the relief, the dread, and now this hollow certainty settled in his bones. Elena found him there, sitting alone in the dark. She didn't speak. She simply walked over, settled onto his lap, and wrapped her arms around his neck, burying her face in the leather of his cut. He held her tightly, his face in her hair, breathing in her scent, jasmine and stubbornness and home. "It never ends, does it?" she whispered. "No," he said, his voice muffled, "but neither does this." He pulled back slightly to look at her. "This right here, you, Lucy, the club, this is what we're fighting for, not the territory, not the money. This, the right to live our life, love who we love, on our own terms." It was a mafia lifestyle, but one filtered through the lens of chrome and asphalt, of brotherhood forged in garages and on open roads. It was a romance born in exhaust fumes and sealed in shared risk. It was dramatic, suspenseful, and emotionally raw. Down the hall, the sounds of the clubhouse continued, the low murmur of voices, the clink of a pool game, Mercy laughing at something Ricky said. Life, stubborn and resilient, went on. Grinch knew the Bianches would send another message, eventually. There would be other threats, other fires to put out. But for now, in the dark chapel with the weight of the woman he loved in his arms, with his sister safe asleep in a guarded room, he had won. He had defended the empire of the heart, and for a man like him, that was the only empire that truly mattered. Thank you for riding with us on that intense journey. What would you do if your family was on the line? Could you command an army of loyalty? Subscribe for more stories where love and brotherhood face impossible odds. Comment, Angel, below, and tell us where you're watching from.